This video was adapted from an article written by Becky Robbins on MASH.com. Just as I was settling into my post-holiday delusion of healthy eating, I decided to review 9 of Sam's Club's most popular bakery items, so you don't have to. Watch and learn. If you don't already know this, you should. Sam's Club's bakery department calls out who cares about calories when you try to look the other way.
Hey!
Also, Sam's doesn't do normal-sized anything. You must buy the most ginormous apple pie you've ever seen, plus 8 other ginormous things. Fortunately, I have 4 teenagers in my house, so I wasn't forced to consume all the calories solo. Before I chose this selection of supersized goodies, I consulted consumer reviews and Sam's Club's website, though my ultimate decision was based on what I found most delicious. Oh, and I skipped the cupcakes.
Oh, that's...
He's a crazy cupcake!
I know, cupcakes are classically delicious, but in my experience, they're like butter croissants. Not much variation from store to store. Fight me. The good news is that nearly all desserts are delicious, so you'll almost certainly find something to love in the Sam's Club bakery, even if it didn't make this list. Confession, I don't like tiramisu. So maybe this ranking is slightly unfair, but I did lean more heavily on my family's opinions here. And I still think the Sam's Club tiramisu deserves the low ranking I've given it. Here's why.
I'm just saying we love tiramisu.
I cannot get enough of it.
We're crazy for this stuff.
Whatever, as a tiramisu disliker, I'm not qualified to say what a perfect tiramisu should be. And after a cursory look around the internet, I don't think anyone else is either. You hear talk about the perfect custard to ladyfingers ratio, which at the very least should be 50-50. Well, Sam's tiramisu is almost all custard, or technically mascarpone cream, basically indistinguishable from custard with very few ladyfingers. It did have a nice coffee flavor. I mean, once I got over the whole my mouth is full of custard and nothing this texture should be edible thing. It was also ugly, just a slab of goo topped with cocoa powder. Based on Sam's Club's marketing photos, the sliced tiramisu should have pretty ladyfinger ribbons running through it, but it doesn't. At best, there's something vaguely ladyfingerish at the sloppy, misshapen bottom of the slice. To be fair though, not everyone agrees. Some people on Reddit even claim it as their favorite, if you like custard, I guess. At this point in my life, I've tried so many different cookies that I need to be wowed by something that is either spectacularly different or absolute perfection. Sadly, Sam's Club's Cookie Variety Pack achieved neither of those things. The Variety Pack features 3 different cookies: chocolate chunk, white chunk macadamia nut, and oatmeal raisin. All 3 had a nice, chewy texture, but none of them was shockingly delicious. I usually love chocolate chunk cookies, but I've definitely had better. The white chocolate macadamia nut cookies were okay. Some of my family members liked them better than I did, but I really couldn't taste the macadamia nuts, and the white chocolate wasn't super present either. The oatmeal raisin cookies, though, tipped the scales all the way over for me. I've had some great store-bought oatmeal raisin cookies, and this wasn't one of them. The cookie had a sufficient number of raisins, but it was kind of salty, and I could definitely taste the baking soda. Sam's Club sells 3 different turnovers: apple, cherry, and queso y guayaba, or guava and cheese. Sadly, the queso y guayaba wasn't available at my local Sam's, because it sounds delicious and unique enough that it might have landed a bit higher on this list than the one I did try, the tart and sweet cherry turnover. On Sam's website though, the cherry turnover is much more popular, so I'm guessing the guava option is a special offering or only available at select stores. I did like the cherry turnover. It was tasty when warmed up and served with a cup of coffee. I appreciated that Sam's Club's turnovers were lightly filled, with just enough cherry puree to make them lively, but not so much that I spent my morning feeling remorseful and bloated. I will say though that the turnover I tried didn't have the real cherry slices promised on Sam's Club's website, which was disappointing. I'm happy not to have too much of that glossy puree, but the additional texture of real pieces of fruit would have been kind of nice. Hence the turnover's 7th place ranking. Sam's Club's carrot bar cake actually has a reputation as one of the worst grocery store cakes. Some people have even complained that it goes moldy after a couple of days. Mostly though, reviewers are unimpressed by the frosting. Some complain that it's not cream cheese frosting, or that it's just bland. And those are pretty valid points. Good carrot cake needs a rich, cream cheesy frosting to balance out all the, vegetables. The reviewers are mostly right about this one. The frosting has an unpleasant, greasy mouthfeel, and I wouldn't be surprised surprised to learn it's made with shortening, though I couldn't find it on the label. Shortening is sometimes used in frosting to make it more white, but it's essentially flavorless, so if you overdo it, you just get greasy frosting. I can't say whether Sam's Club's frosting is made this way, but however they make it, it's not great. It tastes very slightly of cream cheese, just enough to be insulting.
How rude.
Overall, it seemed like the frosting was only there because someone realized last minute they needed frosting, and then discovered they were out of cream cheese. The cake itself was pretty decent. It was moist and had just the right ratio of walnuts to cake. The carrots gave it a nice flavor without being overwhelmingly carroty, and mine didn't get moldy, so bonus points? The iced cinnamon squares are really just miniature scones, and though they're not especially unique, I did find myself going back for a second almost immediately after finishing the first. These are nice breakfasty snacks that go great with a cup of coffee, and don't necessarily need to be warmed up, though they are pretty nice after 15 seconds in the microwave. My only real complaint was that I couldn't really taste any cinnamon, so perhaps they should be renamed iced squares for the sake of accuracy. My opinion, however, seems a bit out of step with Sam's Club website reviewers. Overall, the iced cinnamon squares got around 3.6 stars out of 5, with most one-star reviewers complaining they were hard and dry. The ones I bought were neither of those things. They were moist and easy to eat. And although they weren't drowning in frosting, I don't personally think something drowning in frosting makes for an especially good breakfast, unless you like having indigestion all day. It's worth pointing out though that the ones I tried look nothing like those in Sam's marketing photo, which look a lot less like scones and a lot more like stale blondies or maybe weird misshapen biscotti. At the base level, these are just chocolate brownies, and as long as chocolate brownies are soft and chocolatey, you can't really criticize them. I would have been more than happy if these didn't have a mint and cookie topping, but that mint and cookie topping elevated them from basic brownie to very, very good brownie. Sam's Club's thin mint brownies are topped with mint green frosting, streaks of chocolate, and crumbled thin mint cookies. Yes, the actual Girl Scout cookies you buy 15 boxes of every year, but only because you want to help out your local Girl Scout.
Are those Thin Mints?
Oh yeah, big time, dude. I love these things.
One container supposedly serves 8 people, but in reality, you will eat one and then fist fight the other members of your household for the rest. The only reason Sam's Club's Thin Mint brownies didn't rank higher is that they weren't as moist as some of the brownies I've eaten elsewhere. In texture, these were a little more like cookies than brownies, but that's not necessarily a negative. Before I sign off on this one, I must add that not every Sam's Club reviewer agrees with me. These brownies have slightly less than 4 stars online, though to be fair, most one-star reviewers complained that their brownies were stale, which is probably more of a location problem than a quality problem. If you're having a big group over for dinner, definitely pick up one of these monster pies. Sam's Club's apple lattice pie measures a full foot in diameter, so you can feed a lot of people for just around $11. It also has a very pretty lattice top, and who doesn't like to hear their guests go ooh when they catch sight of a beautifully presented dessert? As for the flavor, well, apple pies tend to distinguish themselves based on the crust. A good pie crust is flaky on the top and tender in the middle without being doughy. It doesn't overwhelm the filling, it complements it, and the edges shouldn't be burnt. Sam's Club's apple pie hit all those points, and I'm not alone in this thinking. One Redditor even calls it the best crust I've ever eaten. The filling was good too. Sometimes apple pie filling is too heavy on the cinnamon or the apples are cooked down to mush, but this pie had just the right amount of cinnamon and the apples were firm but not too firm. For extra joy, warm it up before serving and top it with some vanilla ice cream. I'm hesitant to admit I put Cool Whip on mine, but I totally did. Though not quite as big as the apple pie, Sam's Club's French silk pie is still a pretty generous size. It's 10 inches across, and it costs less than the dinky little Marie Callender's French silk pie you can get in the freezer section of your regular grocery store. Marie Callender's pie has one thing over this one though, the crust. I'm aware that all French silk pies do not have an Oreo cookie or graham cracker crust, but I think those interpretations of this classic are dead wrong. French silk pie should have a cookie crust, not a pastry crust. This is the main reason why I've ranked the Sam's Club's French silk pie as its number 2 bakery item and not as its number 1. Everything else about this pie is fantastic. It's maybe a little heavy on the whipped cream, but whatever, I love whipped cream. Let's put whipped cream on everything. Under the whipped cream, the chocolate filling is rich and exactly the right texture. The shaved bits of chocolate add additional bite and depth of flavor. If it had a cookie crust, I would have been in heaven, but the pastry crust wasn't enough to make me not love what I was eating. And And in this case, the online reviewers agree with me. This pie is overwhelmingly rated as 4.5 stars. Full disclosure, I love cheesecake. And I must also tell you that I generally believe that cheesecake should be topped with fruit. I believe that chocolate and caramel don't make good cheesecake toppings, because the result tends to be the best of neither the cheesecake nor the topping. Boy, was I wrong. This is the first time I've had the cheesecake and caramel and cheesecake and chocolate combinations and didn't think it made for mediocre cheesecake. And I'm not alone. These cheesecakes are so good they've even been featured in TikTok love letters.
Here's a little number now that we dedicate to my favorite food, and we call it cheesecake. Cheesecake!
First, let me tell you what to expect. On one side of the package are cheesecakes made with a caramel base and topped with whipped cream, caramel drizzle, and a vanilla crumble. On the other side are the cookies and crème cheesecakes, which feature a New York-style cheesecake, vanilla and Oreo cookie frosting, and chocolate cookie crumbles. I will admit to only trying one bite of the cookies and crème cheesecake because my family ate them all before I could claim one. I ate an entire caramel cheesecake and then hid the last one where no one else could find it. Both were so decadent you might have a hard time eating them in one sitting. Or not. This is cheesecake at its finest. Flawless. And that's saying something, coming from someone who thinks cheesecake needs fruit.